Oh, so I have to wait for 2 months?
Widlowski couldn't help but smile as he leaned in and kissed Beata briefly. Much too briefly. She smiled back at him. He leaned forward and kissed her again. Ladislav and Jean were carefully keeping Haritonov turned away from the scene. Beata then walked to Haritonov. Suddenly, Julia approached Widlowski, clutching a small parcel in her hands.
I said I thought she missed you. In fact, I knew. When we moved, I found a box with your letters, all opened, all read, all went over. I read them too. I understood who's my real father and why she couldn't answer your letters. But I also found this.
She gave a parcel to Widlowski. He ran his finger over the edge of it. It was old, stained, and faded, but he held it reverently. Beata's handwriting was still familiar. It didn't have a return address, and it had never been opened.
I struggled between mailing it, or opening it, or destroying it. Did neither. It's yours now.
Haritonov pushed Ladislav away and stepped forward towards Widlowski and Julia, but Jean got in his way.
Listen, Haritonov, later today a big trouble for you will arrive.
Had your senility checked up lately? Big, or rather medium-sized trouble, Widlowski, will depart today, not arrive.
By FIDAX. Wait till you see it. You'll get sweaty in your socks. For it, you'll sell your... if there is anything left to sell.
I've got a feeling you want something for it.
Ask him for a shipment of 10 tankers of ocean water to the Gibraltar near Spain.
Bring Beata to the airport at 8 p.m. sharp, and let her decide for herself.
Haritonov frowned and started to walk away again, but Julia leaned in between him and Beata and whispered in his ear so that Beata, who was in a daydreaming mood, won't hear.
Dad, let her go.
Haritonov, Beata, and Julia walked away. Three of them in front of Haritonov's and Beata's house, walking towards the door. Haritonov slowed Julia down out of Beata's earshot.
Julia, if I set her free, do you promise not to follow?
I may want to visit.
Visits are okay, but do you promise not to leave for good?
Promise.
Truthfully, he didn't need Julia to say that out loud. It was something he needed to do for a long time. Something that he should have realized many years ago. Or when he had watched Beata walk down the aisle. Or when small baby Julia started to look like Widlowski's clone. There had been so many hints. So many signals. All of them missed. But not this one. They entered the house. Just inside the entrance there was a large bright-colored suitcase, evidently packed. But how could an old KZB soul miss a new opportunity to bargain with Julia? Julia realized that in a moment and glared at Haritonov, but said nothing.
You gonna throw me out? Well, I probably deserve it.
No. I'm just setting you free. I'm not blind and not deaf and not dumb. Just numb. I want you to be happy.
Oh, I'm not sure what to do.
Do whatever you wish. Just remember, I will wait for you. Right here. You know how long I've loved you. And I will. God, I'm terrible with lyrics. That killed my singer career. That and no musical ear.
Beata lightly kissed him on the ear. It was early in the evening as Widlowski dug through his duffel bag, looking for anything clean to wear on his long trip back home. He was wondering if he should just keep whatever he was wearing, rather than tear through everything again. Though he realized it wasn't as if he had packed too carefully in his haste to leave this morning. Now, though, he was simply trying to give himself something to do. To not think about Beata, even though his mind continued to wander back to her at every turn. To not think about that kiss, even though he could still feel her lips pressed against his. To not think about how he had wasted so much of his life, pining after her, rather than fighting for her when it had counted. He grimaced when his fingers brushed against a parcel, which Julia just gave him, and which he put in the bag. Widlowski slowly tore it open, only to stare at a smaller envelope tucked into it, wrapped up with tape. Peeling the tape off, he let it fall to the floor and opened the envelope carefully, his breath caught in his throat. He held up the half of the Beatles photograph with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. Beata hadn't lied. She had given away her half of the photograph years ago. She'd given it away to him. Something caught Ladislav's attention. He knelt and picked up the wrapping tape, looked at it closer, and brought it under Widlowski's nose. Widlowski realized it was the old magnetic tape, like the tape he remembered cutting apart and peeling together over the years, as he and the Schmiedels had practiced and rehearsed in their dorm. Ladislav walked off towards a shelf and started picking through things before he spun around.
Wow!
But Ladislav waved the neighbor off without saying a word as he approached Widlowski carrying an old and dusty tape recorder and carefully slid the tape in. They listened past the crackling and the terrible quality, not just from age, but from how poorly he had made the medley of the Beatles' commandments on the day the band had broken apart.